All right, I'm here with Jensen. I'm hoping people can hear us. Maybe everybody's left. I understand if you have. So I'm not even sure how to check, but apparently the first little bit, no one could hear. We were saying some good stuff.
We were. Here,
Yeah.
what if I went?
Oh, Jensen's gonna give it a look and see if he can hear us. It's gonna be the counselor lady one.
Okay.
COU. Sorry. LR, let me see, counselor. Is this?
Oh, shows that we're live.
Okay, so that's good here. We were saying some good stuff.
It works.
It works.
It works.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Okay.
Perfect.
So the good news is it's not going to be as long. Bad news is we said some good stuff, but we'll just have to say it again.
And that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
we'll say it better the second time.
Yeah, Jensen, you're watching. Yay, one person
Hey.
watching. It's you. Well, you had asked me what happened that had me shifting towards mental health or towards suicide prevention.
Yes.
And we were talking about how Solon Silic, he died about 5 years ago on my birthday. And his suicide, he died by suicide, and that was a game changer for me. I knew at that moment that we needed to be informing adults in our community, young people in our community, what to look for, and be putting out there the resources that are available. And that became a big push for me. And since that time, I've been trained in mental health first aid, the QPR program, which is question, persuade, refer. I've been trained in the 5 skills resiliency. And then I've developed my own program called Safe Spaces, which helps young people learn how to support each other. And I just keep wanting to get the information out there. Hotlines 988, that's the new Lifeline. And really help people understand that just what we see on the outside is not always reflecting what's going on in the inside. And you shared a minute ago,
No, you're good.
that in the industry you're in, there's pressure to look a certain way. And that sometimes you might be pulling your look off A+, but it doesn't mean
But
on the inside.
you feel like numb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
yeah. And who are your, so you asked me my supports. My supports, when I need, so with all of the deaths, some of them related to drugs, some of them related to overdose, and some just related to health crises in our community. The way that I take care of me is I do a morning yoga practice every day. I do meditation, and then I get out in the woods. But what are your things, Jensen, when things get heavy? I know you've got this creative, artistic outlet.
Oh,
What else
100%.
what are your things, along with that?
I think just being around the people that I'm closest with, like my really best friends or like my family. And I think it's important. I know it sounds so cheesy, but I really truly think that laughter is the best medicine. Like, I've always loved humor. I've always just loved being silly. Like, life is like, I don't take things too seriously. I do when they need to be serious, but for the most part, I'm not a super serious person. I try not to be, at least. So I think just humor and just laughing, really. That's a big one.
And we know what that does to the brain. Like, it fires up all those feel-good hormones.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And we talked earlier when we were on mute. Okay, I got this audio-visual equipment for the grant. Not all wounds are visible. And today's the first day that I'm trying it out. So I'm going to learn some things. But one of the things you mentioned when the audio wasn't working, I had asked you about your family because your story, you're so unique growing up in this small rural community. And you are a very handsome young man. And you have been, like, since you were just a little boy.
Oh, gosh.
Seriously, Jensen, I remember you and Aubrey dancing at the 6th grade dance at the other building. and me just thinking, he is going to be such a handsome kid. And you are.
Thank you.
But makeup's not every handsome young man's drive or passion.
No, for the most part, no.
Yeah, and you've got this amazing family. You mentioned earlier that they just kind of let it be. They didn't make a big deal about it. It's something you've always been interested in since you were little.
Mm-hmm.
And the older you got and the more skills and kind of recognition, you're kind of a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
That then they not only were okay with it, they kind of became a champion of, with Jimmy maybe being the number one family. I joke all the time, like, Jimmy looks pretty good. Everyone in the picture looks all right. Jensen's rocking it, and Jimmy looks pretty good too.
Jimmy's the pretty boy. He's always been a pretty boy.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think, so I'll just be really vulnerable. I come from a very religious, very conservative background, right?
Yeah, living in small rural mountain Arizona.
Yeah, it's a lot sometimes. And I think, people who are more like me and just more open to, being themselves and kind of being that, I guess, weird one in the family that's not like everybody else. Sometimes there can come like a lot of resentment with that and a lot of resentment towards your family for thinking, maybe differently than you. And, and it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Like, there was a period of time where I felt really kind of isolated from everybody because at a point in my life, I wasn't sure who I was or really wasn't comfortable with who I was, and it was just a really awkward time. So, like, I felt almost kind of outcasted, and nobody did that personally. That was just kind of how I felt, and that was more, my problem, I guess, because I just didn't know where I fit in. So I think it's kind of easily sometimes to play the victim a little bit or feel resentful towards your family because you just feel so different from everybody else. You know what I mean?
Okay, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That's very vulnerable, and it means a lot that you'd share that with me and maybe one or two people that are watching. I'm not sure that we got anybody right now. But I'm interested, you mentioned that there was like a minute in your life or a chunk of time where you weren't even sure what to do with who you were.
Yeah.
So when did that just unfold? Because I will say, as an observer, 7th and 8th grade, okay, first of all, they're kind of tricky times for most every human being.
100%.
Very few people as adults go, I just wish I could go back to those junior high years.
I don't.
Nobody ever says that.
Right.
But then it's like all of a sudden your freshman year, I'm like secretly just going, Jensen. Jensen has decided to just do Jensen.
And that's so funny because at that time, I didn't know who Jensen was.
So freshman year was the rough year?
A little bit.
Okay.
Like inside, it 100% was. It was really weird because I was figuring out who I was, but at the same time, I didn't know. I just kind of did what I liked. Looking back now, I'm like, you're so embarrassing. Get a grip. But it was good character development.
And it's so important to just be compassionate and curious with all those parts of ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
So then would you say by sophomore year, you were kind of in your zone?
Sophomore year was tricky just because it was our COVID year.
Oh, geez.
And there was so much going on. That is okay.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. It was COVID year. There was so much going on just with school and death after death.
Oh my gosh. It was.
It was a really rough time. Mm-hmm. That was a really kind of sad year for me. Like
That was the year Aubrey died.
That was the year Aubrey died, and we had just lost Ashley 7 months prior to that as well.
Yeah.
So it was just, there was so much going on. I was struggling myself mentally, but I think through all the turmoil and all the craziness and the chaos and all the tears, I think I really did find myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes, you and I were talking before we even turned on the equipment, even though once we turned it on, nobody could still hear us for a while. But when we really knew nobody could hear us, we were talking about that, about how the people we meet in our life that often are the ones that we are so fascinated with and we're interested and we maybe even want to be like them, they've usually got a pretty loaded story.
Yeah.
The people who have just had, not, no ill will to people who've had a little bit smoother sailing, but the people who really build our character and maybe help us find our resilience are often the ones that have really been through some tough things. And COVID year, talk about societal trauma that everyone experienced, especially young people.
Oh my God, yeah.
Together.
100%. I think that was a year of character development, honestly.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So Jensen, we're jumping to makeup again, but just kind of do a rundown real quick of what we've done. We started with favorite products, hyaluronic acid. We toned everything, hyaluronic acid, Bobby Brown, something.
So I did hyaluronic acid on your face, and then I went in with my Bobby Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. It's just like a moisturizer and primer in one.
Okay.
It has really nice grapefruit extracts in it. It's really good for the skin. Gives a nice supple glow. And then I went in and constructed the brows a little bit. And then I just went in with a little warmer brownish red tone shadows to really make your beautiful eyes pop.
Nice.
And then I'm just doing a little bit of shimmer on the eyelids as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Nice. Nice on the shimmer.
So as a counselor,
yeah,
if somebody came into your chair or into your room and sat on your couch and they told you that they were struggling and they gave you their story of what was going on, what would be your advice to them?
So stories are so different. Like we all have...
I know it's a tricky question.
That is a tricky question.
Everybody's life and story is 100% different.
And I will say a common element that I see on the couch for, like, say, 7th through 12th graders are young people who just don't feel seen and heard. They might not feel seen and heard in their family or with their group of friends, or they might not even be sure that they have a group of friends. Yeah. So that's a really common element. You talked about this chunk of time where you weren't sure, your family wasn't being necessarily critical or anything, but you had all these wonders and were trying to sort through things and you weren't sure your place, your space within any group at that time.
100%.
And that's a common feeling. I actually had a young person at one point, and she had come to share with me that she was gay, and she felt confident that her family could handle her suicide easier than they could handle her being gay.
Wow.
Yeah. And to her family's credit, we did quite a bit of work, and that was not the case. But I think there are young people who really do feel that is the case, and it might not be that the thing they're keeping in is their sexuality. It could have to do with maybe they don't align themselves religiously the way their family does anymore, or even politically. I mean, some families, their political alignment is their religion pretty much.
100%.
And so there are some young people who really feel like whatever kind of whatever they're starting to learn about themselves doesn't have a safe place to be in their family.
Yeah.
And that's always tricky to me. I do assess, if they're sharing certain types of concerns, I'm going to assess if they are at risk of hurting themselves so that we can make sure that that's something we're looking at and assessing and getting supports for. Not that they're going to be necessarily honest with, sometimes you'll ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide or ending their life, and they might tell you they're not, but you kind of get a feeling. And so the answer, and it's a long answer to your question, but ultimately you just kind of head down that path in a unique way for each young person that's sitting with you. And I feel like one thing I can do in my office when someone's sitting on my couch is help them feel seen and heard. Yeah. Even if I'm the only one that they're feeling that from.
And I think that's so important too, because you never know. Like, it's crazy what one person can do. If you feel seen and heard by one person, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I really like helping young people practice how to be a good friend.
Mhm.
Because they might be sitting there saying that they don't feel seen or heard by their friends, but they also may not really have the skills to demonstrate so that other people feel seen and heard.
Right.
Got a few too many pictures going there.
Just one too many. All right, let's try that.
Is it gonna let you?
I hope so.
Jensen's trying to do. So Jensen is TikTok famous.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm not.
Jensen is. What else? You're Instagram famous.
No,
I don't really know what it takes to be famous. But
I don't either.
I know that a young person told me once, well, when you post something, for every minute that it's been up, you should have at least one like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm such a loser then.
No.
Because...
Okay, I really love that you bring that topic up.
Okay, let's
because...
talk.
Go ahead,
Oh, what are
close
we
your eyes.
doing?
I'm going to spray your face real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have warned you.
Yeah, talk social media. Talk the presence and what it means and doesn't mean and should mean.
So, I've realized just being in the TikTok realm, if you will, the past few years, and just, you know, being a product of my generation, if you will, I've realized how toxic social media can be and how mentally depleting it can be. So I think social media plays a really big impact, especially on like my generation's mental health.
Yeah.
Because think about it, I mean, we're just scrolling all day. And you, go ahead and look up for me. It's crazy because you compare your life, and I'm guilty of this too. It's so easy to compare your life to things that you see on social media, whether it be, you know, you see somebody who's on this lavish vacation and, you know, they have all this money and they wear like the nicest clothes and they're really pretty. And you compare that to your life, but what a lot of people don't realize is like half that stuff is fake. It's not real. They really don't have all this money. That car's on, that Lamborghini they're driving is on a lease or it's a rental.
And loan, yeah.
They are full of plastic surgery and fillers. They aren't the most kind people ever. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I think it's so easy to compare yourself and be like, oh, well, what's my life then? Like, I'm nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which can be really, really toxic mentally.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up too. So your thing stopped. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, goodness.
Jensen is recording. He's getting some stuff for the stuff he does in his realm. And so we've got a couple different things going on here. But when you post something, do you go through and check all the comments, or have you kind of given yourself permission to post it and let it be?
I used to do that. I used to, every time I post something, I would literally, you know, close the app, reopen it, and refresh it, because it's like a dopamine rush.
Yeah, it is. It is
really
exactly that.
It's a dopamine rush to,
Yeah.
you know, refresh your page and see
How
all
many
those
likes
comments,
and
all those
comments.
likes. And I think social media is really cool because you can create so many things with it and you can make, you know, a career out of it.
Right.
And you can find, you know, maybe a group of friends or a group of people that, you know, you didn't find before. But it can also be so toxic, especially if you're posting videos and stuff and they're going viral and they're getting thousands of likes, hundreds of thousands of comments. It's crazy. I think that's so much validation in such a short amount of time that like our brain just doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's like insane. Like that shouldn't be, that's not normal to get that much validation, whether good or bad,
Right.
in such a short amount of time.
And do you think people, you can tell me for yourself, but just in general, do you think that if you're kind of an influencer and you're putting that stuff out there, that you're going to really get stuck and resonate on the more negative comments? Like you can have 50 great ones and then one really edgy one. And
Yeah,
you just
and
kind of...
I think it just depends on who you are as well, because I always look at it as like, yeah, that person said one not nice thing, but then, you know, there's 50 other nice comments.
So you try to keep it in perspective.
Yeah, I try to keep it in perspective, but for some people, it's that one negative comment can ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I just think take social media out of it, and you just think of your day. You can have a day with all kinds of pleasant exchanges and really, you know, even maybe on the abnormally high side of really positive things. But if there is one negative interaction, boy, that seems to be the one that sits with us.
Yeah, and I think it all just depends on how you look at it. You know, there's some people who are, you know, the glass is half empty, and there's some people who the glass is half full. So I think it's important to train ourselves and to train our mind of like, yeah, so that negative thing happened, but I had all these other great things happen. So why does that one bad thing even matter?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It can be tricky though. And going back to the whole thing of not feeling seen and heard. So like a common scenario will be a friend group, and it's not just girls. Like people assume that it's always the girls. You know, we kind of do this thing with boys where we're like, well, boys will be boys, and we give them a pass. But we really hold girls responsible for the emotional well-being of everybody. I can get on that kick for a while. But what I really find is that the friendship issues that people are having in their groups of friends are really similar, whether it's a group of boys or a group of girls. And it does kind of go back to that I don't feel seen and I don't feel heard. Like I'm sitting at the lunch table and there's 5 people in our friend group and there's 2 that just dominate the whole thing. If any of the rest of us try to say anything, they just edge us out and they go right back to their talking. And they don't ask us questions, and it can just feel very much like we don't exist. And feeling seen, feeling heard is critical to our well-being. That's how we feel like we matter and belong, and mattering and belonging promotes our well-being.
Yeah.
So what I try to help young people understand is when we're secure, like there can be this misunderstanding that security, sometimes we think, well, if somebody's really secure, they're so confident that they just don't mind dominating the conversation, and they're not looking for validation from anybody, and they don't need anybody, and they just, you know, we kind of can look at security that way, and that's really not what secure attachment looks like. When people are
like the opposite.
It's the opposite. Yeah, when we are secure with who we are, then we are invested and interested in what other people are saying. And we're aware, we read the room, we read the table, and we go, okay, I've talked for a whole lot now. I wonder what my friend did over the weekend, or I wonder, and we learn how to engage other people and actively listen without just thinking, when's my turn, when's my turn, when's my turn?
Yep.
And that's a tricky skill to learn.
It is, and I've been guilty of that more times than I'd like to admit, but I feel like especially over the past few years, I've gotten better at listening and observing and genuinely being interested in what the other person is saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you probably know people, like if you, maybe like not right off the top of your head, and we don't need to name names, but like if are we spraying? Oh, thank you for the warning.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you, Jensen. What is that spray?
So it's MAC Fix Plus, so it's like a makeup primer and setting spray, but since I just put all these creams on your face, I have to spray them before I blend them out, just because I think it kind of reactivates them a little bit.
Nice.
And helps them blend a little bit easier.
Wow. I just want to look at myself a little bit.
So we're doing a little underpainting. So this is like the fun part of this makeup stage.
Okay.
So what I do is I go over all of this with a really light amount of foundation, and it just all blends together.
Cool. I've seen a few videos where people do this.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so what we were talking about being seen and heard and practicing that. And when you think back about people who you really enjoy being with, that you just feel, because we have people that we like being around, and sometimes when we're around them, there's certain people who it's fun, but it's a little draining, and we know that like we just need a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And there's other people that we think, you know what, I could be around them for a long time.
Yep.
And we just have these different, types of connections with people. And often the ones that we really feel like we can be around for a long time and just feel really energized and valued, it's because they are good at that skill.
Yes.
They know how to take turns in conversation.
Yeah.
They know how to share their stories, but also listen to our stories. And they're so secure in who they are. They're not trash talking. You know, everybody, there's moments that we all have little gossip sessions and things like that. But generally, if we're hanging around people that all they do is trash talk other people,
it's draining.
It's draining.
Yeah, it's very draining. I've had a lot of that this past year where I just don't, I was over it. I was over the, I was, again, everybody has their little gossip, but when it's every time, you're just like, dude.
Yeah.
Can we, not?
And it leaves you wondering if you're the center of their conversation.
Yeah, you leave the room and, how do you know you're not being trash talked?
Yeah.
Oh, dear, my mom's calling me. I'll call you back then.
Yeah, it does. And so that's kind of when we think about those people that we feel so valued by and that we really do matter to them and belong, we can use them as kind of models to mirror. We can practice those skills they're showing us in our interactions with others. And that's something that in the junior high age group and up into high school, I would love to say that everybody masters it by the time they're done with high school, but these are the same issues grown-ups will deal with for the rest of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
The things we don't master in junior high and high school, they just become our grown-up problems. Yeah. There's really, the more that we're able to develop those resiliency skills, those abilities to connect, to find that secure attachment. I find that one of those things, too, interestingly, has to do with beauty. As a younger person, I felt like security meant that I was working hard to look good, but that I was nitpicking. I'm just going to own it. I was really nitpicking, not to people's faces, but I was pretty critical in my mind about how a lot of other people looked.
Yeah.
And I have found so much freedom in deciding to let beauty be what it is and to see it everywhere.
Beauty's in the eyes of the people.
Yeah. And if you want to behold it everywhere, it's everywhere. And it's really been empowering.
And when you say nitpicky, did you mean on a physical level of nitpicky?
Mostly. I mean, and I was being raised, as are young people today, in a society where there was a diet culture that was just very predominant. Fitness police, you had to look a certain way. Food was a morality issue. Like if you ate dessert, then you basically were a sinner.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way. So I get that a lot of my perceptions weren't just self-generated, but I really drank the Kool-Aid of, and so, it had to do with body image. It had to do with, sometimes we're really critical if full-figured people choose to wear certain things. Why are we like that? Whose bodies, who deserves to wear what? It's just not about that. It's,
the way I look at it, I always think, is that going to keep me up at night?
Yeah.
If most of the time it's no, I don't need to worry about it.
That's a great. And I have found, I would say in the last 20 years, I've let so much of that go.
Yeah.
And every decade, I'm so surprised at how different I am than I was 10 years ago. Yeah. And then you kind of think, but I'll probably stay this way. And then you don't. And it's so great that we don't. It's so great that we allow ourselves.
We're meant to change. We're meant to grow.
Yeah.
That's who we are.
Thank goodness. But in that growth, this idea that we want to work towards connection, that's where secure attachment comes. That's where we feel those supports. That's when we can take that mask off. I think, I've got that little image up of the mask, and that we're sometimes holding this mask up so that everyone thinks we're one thing when we really need to say, hey, I need help.
Yeah. I think it's really hard, and I think there's a lot of embarrassment. Not that it's embarrassing, but I think embarrassment can come up as an emotion when asking for help.
For sure. Yeah, my daughter Jocelyn actually put this together for me, the image, and I was glad she did that because I think she personally has some life stories that kind of gave her some perspective to help create that image. And I think all of us could, if given the assignment, not all wounds are visible. I would love to see the artwork people would come up with, because that just means different things to everybody.
100%. 100%.
I'm trying to think of what else we talked about before we realized we weren't.
There's no audio?
I know, before we realized we're just getting makeup done. I don't remember what we had going on.
I'm going to go live on Instagram. Or I could go live on TikTok.
Wherever you want.
Probably TikTok. We usually get more views on there.
Okay. Jensen's going to be taken off to go to school. What school will you be attending? Or is it a secret? You don't have to say. You're going to a school in the Valley.
Down in Scottsdale.
Down in Scottsdale, you'll become a medical esthetician. And combined with his makeup skills already, sky's the limit.
Amen, sister.
Yeah. What are you going to do with all that shopping around you? You're going to lose your mind.
I know. I'm going to have to just stay inside. Somebody's going to have to hide my car keys from me and my wallet. No, I've been really proud of myself the last, probably about this past year. I've been really good at not spending.
You've been a saver?
Mm-hmm. Not really a saver, it's more of a, do I really need this? No, type of person.
Got it.
Don't get me wrong, I still like to go out to eat and splurge a little bit,
Right.
but not as bad as I was.
So if you're down in the Valley, where are you going?
Ulta.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I love to go out to eat.
Like particular places or just anywhere?
I love a good restaurant. I love a good sit down. I love good conversation, at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's always fun to me.
That is fun.
Maybe a little shopping, but definitely not as bad as I was.
Are you fun to shop with? Do people?
Yes.
Or do you get kind of in a zone and?
I'm really fun to shop with because I become almost like if I'm with my friends, I almost become like a little personal stylist.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Jensen.
I know.
Maybe you need to. That could be one of your many side jobs.
Oh my gosh, personal stylist.
Personal stylist with Jensen. When Jensen and I were planning this via text message, he asked what we should wear.
I did, because I was like, what's the vibes?
And I have to say, I got a little nervous because I really didn't have an answer to that question.
I didn't either. I was just going to show up in all black like I usually do, because that's like the standard makeup artist uniform.
And I did have all black I could have worn, but I thought now would be a great time to show off my 988 shirt.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, Brooke Horn, student body president at Blue Ridge. She gave me this shirt, and it actually has cool little words like that say "You are beautiful," "You're not alone," "You are loved," that make up the 988. So very nice gift from Brooke Horn, helping promote the number. The Lifeline used to be 10 digits, and now all you have to dial is 988.
I love that.
Yeah. And something else I'll share, because we've been talking about some of the deaths in our community, and they've been going on for a long time, actually for generations. Yeah. Suicide in the White Mountains has been a generational repeat for like over 30 years. In the time that I've worked at Blue Ridge for 12, maybe 13 years, but we did a count over the last decade, and just the students that we could come up with, and granted we probably missed a few, we were able to identify 19 students that had died in 10 years. A couple of them from car accidents, a couple of them from medical crises, but the bulk of them from overdose and suicide. So I do want to say something about overdose while we're chatting. One of the reasons that that we do have a lot of access to drugs that are very dangerous, fentanyl particularly. But another thing that can be problematic with overdose is if people are partying together and someone seems out of it, we might just want to let them be, and we might think, I don't want to call, I don't want to report it because I could get them in trouble, I could get everybody that's at this party in trouble.
And you're not too sure if they're like genuinely okay or
yeah,
if they're not.
Right. You think, well, they just need to sleep it off. And so we might be hesitant, and we really want to get the message out there that when you suspect an overdose, call 911. The state of Arizona has what's called Good Samaritan laws, and they protect people that are reporting with good intention. And that's a good place to start, is just recognizing that we need to start making these reports. We talked for a little bit about the dopamine rush that occurs, when you refresh your feed. Dopamine is the game of the teenage brain. It is being released in doses that are higher than any other time in a person's life, and dopamine reinforces any kind of behavior. And what that means for teenagers is that teenagers aren't really considering the risk of the choices they make. What they're really trying to determine is the potential reward. Yeah. And so a lot of risky behaviors are taken because the risks really aren't considered. It's that dopamine rush. I want that dopamine rush. What's the potential reward? Good enough for me, I'm going to do that. And so we get into these situations where addiction and higher levels of drugs and alcohol are being consumed, putting young people in really dangerous situations. Yeah. So 988 is the lifeline, but just as importantly, if people suspect, or if someone's having a medical crisis or you suspect overdose, being brave to call 911 and get them that help. Yeah. Of course, it's nice if you are aware that a friend is struggling with drugs or alcohol. It would be helpful to talk to a trusted adult, maybe prior to them having a crisis, if you're able to. But in the end, we can't. No matter how good of friends we are, we can't save people. They do have to make the decision to be well.
And I'm so glad you bring up that topic. And I was going to ask you, and you just reminded me when you said that. So suicide is a ripple effect of emotions, and it obviously devastates the people that are left behind.
Yes.
So for whoever may be watching out there, what advice would you give to people who have lost a loved one to suicide?
Well, we know that when we lose someone to suicide that's in our inner circle, our risk for suicide increases just by knowing that person. And so it is really important to look for help and to find where you feel seen and heard, and be sure that you're finding safe spaces where you can really share the feelings that you're having, but also that you're building those resiliency skills. Sometimes we talk a lot about safe spaces, and we talk a lot about making sure that we help people feel seen and heard, but something else we have charge over is building our own resiliency. And we build our resiliency when we work on building connections with other people, when we work on trust, perseverance, our ability to adapt. All of those skills are what we do there's so many. I mean, if we were to brainstorm them and write all the things that would count as resiliency, but if it would go on and on. But if you feel like, I believe in that, but it's just not working for me, there is certainly a time where we need to consult professionals, and we need to get professionals involved to see what we can work through with the help of somebody that's trained. There's a lot of people who have experienced trauma. We were talking a minute ago about how, as a society, we all experienced the trauma of COVID together.
Oh my gosh, yeah. For
a lot of young people, it uprooted everything they expected from that particular year and the years to follow of their school experiences. And so being able to talk to a trusted adult, and then possibly being able to, and if you are an adult, then a trusted friend. But I think it's one thing that's common too is young people are carrying the heaviness of another friend's, a concern that a friend has shared with them. So like they've maybe had a friend send them a screenshot of self-injury or a screenshot of their intention to harm themselves. And then they're saying, but don't tell anyone. What do you think of that? Like, if you're a friend and someone's sending you things, especially if they're saying that they're considering suicide, but they're asking you not to tell. Put yourself back in junior high, Jensen. You're in the building. We are in the junior high right now doing this.
We are.
But what do you think what would your advice to your junior high self be if you had a friend who was sharing those kinds of feelings with you?
I think I would tell somebody. Probably I'd probably come to you, and not to rat that person out, but genuinely just be like, yo, this is what's happening, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, I feel for them, but also this isn't my baggage to carry, and obviously they need help. And if they're not going to reach out and ask for it, like, I'm going to do it for them. And I think that, honestly, that is a cry for help. Because if you genuinely didn't want help, you wouldn't do anything. You wouldn't, and I think that's the big thing with suicide for people who do go through with it. It's really hard to tell, and a lot of people, you know, it's always the people that are smiling that are fine, and then the next day they're gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it really is that person reaching out for help. They just maybe don't know how to directly say it.
I love that you're saying, yeah, just tag somebody in. And when I'm working with young people, we call it tagging in a trusted adult. But if you're an adult, you're tagging in a trusted friend. Mm-hmm. And if you can't identify, and some young people cannot identify a trusted adult in their life. Yeah. Even if I'm the one sitting in the room with them saying, hey, I'm willing to be your trusted adult, they're looking at me like, yeah, you don't know my life, and I don't trust anybody.
Which is like I respect that, because
I do too.
You don't, like, the things that some adults have, like, put kids through, it's
my gosh. Yeah.
It's, like, hard to fathom. So I get where they're coming from.
I do too. And it's, you know, that those parts inside of them that are trying to protect them from the experiences they've had. Yeah. Keep them from wanting to find a trusted adult. So then I teach them, okay, so here are some ways we can identify who the trusted people are in our life. Mm-hmm. We can look for their benevolence. Benevolence is their kindness, their compassion. How compassionate and curious are they with you when you're struggling versus judgmental and opinionated and harsh? Mm-hmm. Because if they're kind and compassionate with you when you're going through a hard time, that builds our trust in them. Yeah. So their benevolence is going to build our trust in them. Their integrity. Do we feel like they do the things they say they're going to do? And if nobody was watching, do we feel like they would still be coming through? That's another way we can make meaning out of their behavior. And ultimately, that's what trusting somebody is. We're watching them, we're learning, we're seeing what they do, and then we are making our own meaning out of what they do. Yeah. So if they demonstrate benevolence and they demonstrate integrity, if they demonstrate predictability, that we can predict that they're going to, you know, some people we think, okay, if I go with them, you were saying you like to go to restaurants, and I don't know what your experience has been, but, you know, every now and then there's a person in the group who can make the restaurant experience less than pleasant. They very much can be very obnoxious to the servers, but then
come unglued if that happens.
As a server,
I'm a very nice person, but
be nice to Jensen.
Be nice to the service industry people.
Oh my gosh, I agree.
It's rough out there.
Yeah. So, like, if you have people you want to go to a restaurant with, and you can't predict, you've got certain friends that you know, sometimes they're cool, but other times they're total jerks. You're probably not going to trust to go to the restaurant with them. You're going to pick other people. It doesn't mean you don't care about them or that they don't have a space in your life, but they're not your restaurant friends. Exactly. Because, right. And so that's the same with, you know, with all areas of trust. We figure out who we trust in which things and which areas. And those are the people we want to be able to tag in when we're really having, you know, those hard times. Mm-hmm. Who are the people that are going to listen to us non-judgmentally and be able to help us get those supports that we need? Yeah. How am I looking, Jensen?
Looking good. I'm going to spray you real quick.
Okay. What is this spray?
So this is another setting spray, but it's a continuous mist. See how it's like very fine? Yeah. So I love this stuff because it literally just kind of helps melt all the different powders together.
I work in this building. I don't get treated like this ever.
Never?
This building.
Oh
Well,
my gosh.
you know what goes down in a junior high,
Yeah,
man.
that's very true.
This is amazing. That's right, Jensen. I feel like I need someone massaging each hand and each
Feeding
foot.
the grapes.
It's pretty bomb. Miss Heather's gonna wish she was here.
I know.
She's next.
Ah, I'd love to do her makeup.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, back to it.
Yeah. So where are we at? We're working on cheeks now?
Yep.
Building
Building the contours and the blush. Just making all those colors pop. I love blush. It's like one of my favorite steps. I think it just really brings the face to life.
Jensen, you mentioned that your family is pretty rooted in their beliefs.
Yep.
And how is that? Do you feel like as you've gone through adolescence and into young adulthood, do you feel like you've been able to find your own identity in those areas? Or tell me a little bit about that, because spirituality is another resilience skill, but it can really look, it looks different for everybody.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things for me is respecting that other people are gonna have different beliefs, and they're 100% and completely entitled to it. If that's their thing, that's their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want them to respect mine, I feel like it's important for me to respect theirs too, because I'm allowed to think what I think, and they're allowed to think what they think, and that's totally okay. I think one of the biggest things, especially in today's society, is people can't get along with other people who have different views as them.
Mm.
It's so divided. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned thus far is, like, you can still be in the same room with somebody and still be, friends with them just because your beliefs are different. It's really, like, at the end of the day, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
It's really not.
At the parade, did you go to the parade?
I didn't.
What were you doing on the 4th of July?
Sleeping. Sleeping in, avoiding the traffic.
Yeah, the
And working.
Traffic was... You worked on the 4th?
Mm-hmm.
We almost went to Annie's after the
You
parade.
should've.
Jeez, Jensen, I've missed you twice this week.
Well, I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay. We'll see what tomorrow brings. We went to the parade, and there was a float. And this is a saying that has, it's a very well known, but it's the quote, "United we stand, divided we fall." Mm-hmm. And I've always had issue with that, because I really think divided we can stand. And I think what you're saying, we don't have to see everything eye to eye. We can come together and have very different perspectives, very different views. And it doesn't mean, that we're united, but it also doesn't mean that we fall. Like, we can stand with divided opinions, and we can stand strong. Mm-hmm. And I love that. And I think the more we steer away, something that I find really helps build that connection with people, which is a resiliency skill. One of the ways that we do that is by stepping away from our assumptions. Yeah. And instead of making assumptions about why people do what they do,
or why they believe what they believe.
Yeah, let's share our lived experiences. Yeah. What have you actually been through? Tell me your story.
Exactly, and I'm sure, go ahead and look up for me, you respect people a lot more. I think we should fill our days more with giving people a piece of our heart rather than a piece of our mind.
Nice. Yeah.
Because honestly, I don't care. I don't really care what other people believe. Whether, your religious stance, your identity, your religion, your sexuality, I really don't care. Like I said earlier, it's not going to keep me up at night.
Right.
And I don't get why other people are so flustered by it.
Boy, people are really worked up by it.
Yeah. And
I agree.
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think they have their reasons. I mean, I think if we were to look at what they're trying to protect in themselves, they are trying to protect some part of themselves, but it's such a destructive way to go about it. Yeah. And at the root of what they're trying to do, they could probably find a different outlet to achieve that same outcome. Yep. And that's true of any maladaptive behavior that we have. It typically comes from a part of us trying to protect us from something else. but it's not always a helpful approach.
Yep.
So we can be kind. I know I've had a few moments where I am the counselor and I do teach really great skills, but my kids would be the first ones to say, yeah, she loses her ever-loving mind every now and then.
And that's all right. We're all human.
We do. And so it's the part, whatever's driving that, it's not, the problem isn't with what my intention is, it's how I go about it. And so just sitting with that and considering, I have had strongly held opinions on things, and when I have met people who have had lived experiences regarding those areas, it has changed me. Like, changed me forever.
Yeah.
To actually, rather than me just having my assumptions and my opinions, really speaking with someone who has lived experience in that topic. And
you're just like,
I just have to.
I never thought of it like that.
I have to take a great big step back and just decide, wow, I really want to give myself permission to see this through their lens.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I do find that when people talk to me about some of my lived experiences, well, like as a counselor, school counselor, kids, young people make assumptions about us too, oh, well, her life, she's got it all figured out, da 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 da. And when they start to learn parts of my story, I think it actually creates opportunity for connection too.
I think once we realize that really nobody has their life fully in order, I think we can relate to each other a lot more.
Yeah.
Like we all have baggage, we all have a story, we all struggle. And I think once we realize that, and we're all just people living this crazy life together rather than, oh, she's that, he's this, I'm this. I think once we put all the BS to the side and just realize we're all just people, we all bleed red, it doesn't matter who we are, I think we'd be a lot kinder to each other.
Yeah. Good job with the BS. Good job not cussing in the building, Jensen.
Thank you so much.
We never cuss in the junior high.
Oh, no we don't.
I know, I'm a little insensitive to all things because of my decade of junior high work.
Bless your heart.
Forever junior high.
So back to our suicide topic.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, from my experience, I think it's sometimes a little bit hard to tell when somebody's struggling. But from your professionalism, what are the telltale signs that somebody is struggling really bad?
Yeah. So when somebody dies by suicide and we look back, we typically can see some signs. But what makes that tricky is those signs are also the things we see from a lot of people who don't make the decision to die by suicide. So it really is a tricky thing to identify. Even though, we can see a pattern, we can see that pattern in a lot of people's lives who then build their resiliency skills and become well. But I guess if we're ever wondering, I think the most important thing to do is to reach out to that trusted other support. Like if it's a friend, maybe reach out to someone in their life and say, hey, I'm really worried about them. And find out if they hear, like say it's, their parents or, a sibling or their roommate. And you reach out and say, I'm really worried about so-and-so. They just seem down. They seem different than they've seemed. Then you can kind of get a read of if other people are feeling those concerns too. And that's what's important too, is this baseline. Like if you've been friends with someone for years and they tend to be an introvert and they like to be with their friends for a little while, but then they're really comfortable going home and being alone.
Me.
You're like, yes, that's me. I mean, then that's not going to be an alarming behavior.
Yeah.
But if you're with someone who loves to be out, social, and then all of a sudden they start withdrawing and, they're not participating anymore and they're not present anymore, you start to see this big shift. And this is the same whether it's your friends, whether it's your kids. If you start to see a real shift in what's going on where the baseline was in one spot and now it's really in a different spot, that's going to be a lot more of a red flag than say if someone just kind of runs flat all the time. However, if they run flat all the time, that could also be something to be concerned about. So I guess my advice is just if you can offer supports, ask them straight up, hey, I've noticed, let them know what you've noticed. I've noticed that you used to be doing all of these things and now you're kind of withdrawn. Tell me about that, or how are you doing? And see if they're willing to share. Collaborate with other people that are part of their support system and see what they're noticing. Find out what your community has to offer as supports. Some people find tremendous supports by participating in different organized things throughout the community. Other people want to just go on a walk with you or go to dinner with you. But ultimately, these hotlines like the 988, if you're in a crisis situation or a friend of yours is, this number is not just for the person in crises. You could call this number and say, hey, my friend, I am very concerned about my friend and here's what's going on. And the people on that line are going to help walk you through what some steps are that you can take and what needs to happen next. So don't hesitate to use the crisis lines. You might think, oh, well, I'll just send it to my friend, and if they need it, they'll use it.
Yeah.
But you can actually use it on behalf of a friend.
Somebody else. I did not know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And in our county, in Arizona, if you call 988, they will potentially put you in touch with a mental health crisis mobile team that we now have in Navajo County. It just kind of depends on the nature of the situation. But that's something we did not have before. We've only had that for about a year. And so the mental health mobile crisis team can actually come out to the person that's in crisis and support them. And a lot of communities have that. And the same thing would be true. Start with 988, and then they're going to dial you into more of your local supports that are available to you.
Okay. I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
very good info.
Oh, I'm glad. And when we're deciding who we want to tag in on behalf of someone else, again, we're just looking at who do we trust? What do they demonstrate to show that they are trustworthy to share this concern with? And so that we want to honor the experience that the people in our lives are having. We don't want to just be throwing their our concerns for them out there with people who aren't going to hold them and honor them.
Yeah.
So we do want to be cautious, but hopefully we can identify some trusted people, within our circles that can help us support that person, so that you're not carrying it. One thing I just really want is for young people, young adults, and adults all to lift that burden of having to carry other people's things without the additional supports that they need.
Yeah. That's a big one.
It's a big one.
That is a really big one.
Yeah. Sometimes we just get drained by the heaviness of things going on in everybody else's life.
Yeah. And it's really hard to focus on our stuff.
Yeah. I wish you guys could see Jensen with this palette, man. He's like dipping and swirling and blending and.
I never do one blush. I do like 40.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Talk to us a little bit about grief, because especially from suicide.
Yeah, suicide grief is very complicated. We have so many unknowns, of that decision that was made. And a lot of wonders. We tend to wonder, could I have done something? Could I have been more supportive? We want to do the what ifs.
The shoulda, coulda, woulda.
The coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And so that adds another element to our grief. We might think back to interactions where we think, I was not the kind of friend I should have been in that instance. It can be really heavy. So we need to be very generous and compassionate with ourselves in that process. It's okay to be angry about death. It's okay to be angry even at the person who died, and to really have some hard conversations with them, even though they're gone. One skill that helps a lot of people is to use artistic expression to deal with their grief. a lot of people, that's going to be just to write things out, like with words, writing out their feelings about it. It can be poetic. It can be,
Visual.
yeah, it could be something more artistic. I know you've done some faces for suicide prevention. You did one this last year that is phenomenal with the suicide prevention colors, the teal and the purple.
I just knew I wanted to make it like almost like a warrior
Yeah.
type. So I looked up like, warrior traditional makeup, or like the paint that they would do, and I also put like Viking runes, like symbols that stood for like strength and like resilience and like courage.
It was beautiful.
Thank you.
I have it as one of the images I use whenever I'm promoting suicide prevention.
Which was so cool, by the way. I was like, oh my gosh, use my picture.
Oh,
That's so cool.
it's phenomenal. Yeah, it's great. But being able to allow yourself to flow through the different stages of grief, and know that there's going to be ups and downs, and you're going to have moments where you feel peace with it, and there's going to be moments where you're like, what happened? How did that happen?
Yeah, there's like Audrey's been gone. November will be 3 years, and I still struggle with that. For the most part, it's it's very peaceful, and I've come to terms with it. But there are times where I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, there's no way. But then I go back. I don't know. Grief is weird because it never stops. It never goes away. It just kind of becomes a part of you.
There's a lot of analogies that people use with grief. What do you need me to do?
I'm going to have you look up real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to go right in your eye, and you just let me know if you need a break, okay?
Okay. So I might not talk for a second. Remind me. Oh, you're doing good. So some of the analogies for grief, people talk, about how in the beginning it's like having a great big hiking backpack on and all your hiking gear, and it's heavy and it's everywhere with you, and there's not a second that it's not with you.
Yeah.
But then as you progress through the different stages, and you kind of like downsize to a smaller bag, and then pretty soon you've got one of those airport carts with the wheels, and it's still with you, but you can take a break, and you might even get all the way down towards just a super cute fanny pack.
Yeah.
Over the.
You're just like do.
Yeah.
Here's my grief.
But it's always with you,
Yeah.
and then there might be one morning you wake up and the fanny pack's off, and all of a sudden you're wearing that hiking bag again, and you're like, what is this?
That's so real.
So that's one way to look at it. We talk about grief. I talk about it in my work with clients as this very important feeling. It's not a feeling so much as an experience. And if we don't allow grief to be part of our experience,
We can never heal.
Yeah, we're preventing growth too. Like, grief is what really gives us opportunity for future connections with other people.
Yeah.
So it's an important experience to allow ourselves to have. And instead of thinking of grief as this great big thing that just shrinks up and is gone, we can really consider grief a big thing that fills us, that we then build our life around.
Yeah.
And we build our life around it to honor that person or people. As we've been talking, we've got several that we both know from our community. And so we let that grief live in us. We don't want it to stay a toxic, dysfunctioning energy. We might have some times with it like that, but we want to give it opportunity to soften and to become something that changes who we are, that we then build our life around. You were saying earlier that your experience with, I believe with Aubrey and just some others who have passed away, has led you to just feel like you don't ever want to have a negative. You want to be really self-aware of your interactions with others.
Yes.
So
100%.
that you can come away from things feeling like...
And obviously I'm not perfect. I'm no saint. But obviously we have times where we slip up. And
Sure.
we were mean one day, but I think it's important to be self-aware. And not every day is going to be a win. I'm guilty. There's so many days where I've been like, dude, I was a jackass today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I feel like as long as you have that self-awareness, and for the most part, you do have good intentions, I feel like to me, that's important.
And sometimes we're not going to be like, people may come to us. We have to give ourselves grace too and recognize that you and I and everyone who we interact with, we're all humans too.
Yeah.
We're humans, we're having a human experience. And even though we really want to be self-aware, and even though we want to do everything we can to help promote wellness and the mental health of others, we're going to have some tough days. And there's going to be days where we really don't bring our A game, and being able to give ourselves grace for that is really important. And so when you talk about how do we handle the grief of someone who has died by suicide, that is so important, of just giving ourselves that grace of, I know I did the best I could with what I knew when I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And based on my own experiences and my own ups and downs, I really offered the best I could with that friend based on what I knew when I knew it. And then there, at the same token, now I know more.
Yeah.
And I might be able to offer other people something different, but I did what I knew to do based on what I knew then.
That's very true.
And then having that growth and working forward with new information. But we were, you know, my daughter, Soraya, she could tell some great stories on me. One thing I do try, when I have a moment that's really less than, this is very generous of me to just call it that.
I love that. When I have a moment that's less than. No, I love that.
I don't want, and this can happen here at school too. So like in my work as a junior high counselor, every now and then there will be a student, and for whatever reasons, we just have a little friction.
Yeah.
And as an adult in a school setting, we have the opportunity to dig our heels in and to exert power and control over young people in ways that are really destructive.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person. So if I've had a day where I'm bumping heads with somebody, it's very important to me to bring different energy the next day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that setting in any deeper than it needs to.
Right.
And same with my kids and with my family members. There is freedom in being wrong. There is freedom in looking for insights from other people, asking them for ways you can improve. And so when I talk about some of the hiccups that Soraya and I have, she's 16. We have generally, well, I'm going to report that we have a great relationship. You can do her makeup one day and get the true story from her. But,
oh my God.
Yeah. But we, if we do have a moment that's less than, I don't want to stand by that and protect that meltdown and say, well, I'm the mom, so I'm right. Mm-hmm. I do try to give opportunities to process what's happened and say, I definitely feel strongly about this. My way of going about it, not so great. And give ourselves that grace to have do-overs.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find with young people, so I told you about the young person I worked with who felt like her family could handle her suicide better than they could handle knowing she was gay. Mm-hmm. And we worked with the family, and that was not the case. To say that's not the case ever, I just can't say that. But I think generally families really want the opportunity to love and support their kids. But grown-ups, parents, they're not experts on learning information they weren't expecting to learn. Mm-hmm. And so when they learn something new, it might take them a minute to be that support that they really want to be.
100%.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Knowing that we're not great at, I can remember the first time a student showed me their self-injuries. And we know that self-injury is a coping mechanism, and it often works for young people. It's dangerous. There's, the tissue, the skin is the largest organ of the human body, and we don't want to be damaging it. But we're not supposed to respond with shock and awe. When a young person shares that they're using self-injury as a coping mechanism, it's really important to just be there with them and learn how it's working for them, and if there's something else I could try. The first time that...
Just ready real quick.
Go ahead. Are you drowning? Oh, here we go.
back with the fan. Anyway, what were you
Well, I was just going to say the first time that I had a student show me some injuries that they had done on themselves, I did have a shock and awe response. Like, it wasn't in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's very much in my wheelhouse now. So this would have been like 15 years ago, or even longer. But it was something I hadn't seen. I wasn't aware. I hadn't been taught about it. And I did luckily get to have a do-over with that student. And I just said, you know, when you showed me those, it means a lot that you would trust me with that. And my response was, I was really surprised, but I don't want you to feel like I always want you to feel like you could share with me whatever it is that you're choosing to do as your coping mechanism, and not think, oh, well, if I share this with her, she's going to lose her mind. Because I did have a pretty strong response. I was very surprised. I was sad. But putting my sadness on her doesn't help that student. Yeah. It just adds one more thing where that student's like, oh, well, and now I've even disappointed somebody else.
Yeah.
And that was not my intention. Jensen, have you figured out where you're going to live? Do you have
With my
roommates?
sister.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's going to take me in.
Are you going to do
I said, hi, I'm homeless. And she said, okay, come live with me. I said, okay, thank you.
You're going to have to babysit a little bit for your keep?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. That's okay. I like kids, so.
Nice.
I think kids might love me a little bit more. I'm not sure why, but...
They love you more than maybe you love them back. Wow. How many nieces and nephews do you have?
Oh my gosh, so... Let's see.
He's counting. Five?
And another one on the way.
Wow.
I know. It's a lot.
That is a lot. That's exciting.
It's a little shocking.
Yeah. So, Jensen, if people were going to learn something about you in regards to just your well-being, something that's really worked for you, or something that's been a challenge, maybe something that would surprise them.
I think... I mean, I'm sure this is not hard to tell, but having a hobby is, to me personally, really, really important. I think doing something healthy that keeps your mind distracted, in a positive way, of course, is really, really important. And, you know, that might be easier said than done, because some people already have hobbies, and some people are like, I don't.
Right.
And it can be really hard to find something that you love. But I think just having the willpower to just fight for yourself, and fight for your mental health, and fight for your will to live, I guess, if you're in a sticky situation.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having that willpower to, to just, and even if it's literally just getting up in the morning and just getting yourself ready, or just eating something, if that's all you can do for that day, like, you're good. Like, you've done enough.
Yeah, and resiliency. Like, talk about resiliency. Sometimes it's these little steps like that. That's not big stuff. It can be really little things.
And I think that's really important. I've been really good at teaching myself that the past year.
Yeah.
Of, we look at things on such a grander scale, and we're like, oh my God, I'll never get there. But if you literally just do, like, the baby steps, like, okay, you get up in the morning, maybe one morning, all you do is make your bed. Or...
I love a made bed, by the way.
I sleep with the blanket on me, so I don't get under the sheets, just so I don't have
so you don't have to make the bed.
Exactly. Or maybe just keeping your room clean, or maybe just brushing your teeth for that day. If you can just do each little step for maybe a week at a time, and then slowly start adding different things in your routine, I think a lot of people would be surprised of how far they can come.
Yeah. That's good. Well, you asked me what you might do if you're worried about a friend. So one of the programs I teach is called QPR, and it stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer.
Okay.
So the question means really asking them if they're feeling, ask them about their mental health, possibly ask them directly if they're feeling suicidal, if they're planning to kill themselves, asking those hard questions. And then based on what we learn from that, then we're going to consider how we can go about persuading them about the value of their life, their meaning, that they matter, that they're important, that they belong. And then in conjunction with that, we're going to be looking at how we support referring them to somebody who might be able to support them even better than we can.
Mm-hmm.
And so that question, persuade, refer, PPR. Those are some really important steps.
So I'm sure in your field and in your career, you've probably seen a lot
Yeah.
more than the average person should. But what has been things that you've noticed that has helped other people who are not in such a good headspace?
Well, that one, I talked to you about the one young person who was not sure if her family could be that support to her.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to sit with her and with her family, and we invited a couple of other trusted adults that she knew, and being able to have that conversation and see the intention and the desire that they had, that was really a helpful thing to have. But ultimately for her, it became really important for her to make connections with some other groups of people as well. So she was able to develop a connection with her family that she didn't think was possible, but she also was able to give herself permission to find other safe spaces to build some connections. And our willingness to do that is really important. I can't say enough about building connections. Building connections doesn't mean having this robust, intricate social life with all kinds of people in it. It can mean, some really simple things, but those connections are critical. They are key. Feeling like we matter, we belong, that we're seen and we're heard. Those are the things that are going to help us pull through. Now, mental health also, we've got, there's psychosis that can contribute to mental health that can be very debilitating as well, and we haven't even touched on that, which isn't depression so much, although it can contribute to some depression. But there are some people who are really battling some psychiatric illnesses, and the weight of the things that they're dealing with, we can't necessarily comprehend if we haven't personally dealt with psychoses. And so taking that stigma away and being able to say, having a diagnosable mental health condition, taking the stigma and being able to say that helps get us on the road towards functioning again. And there are a lot of people with diagnoses, even like schizophrenia and bipolar, the big ones, who are living very functional, satisfactory lives because they have the supports in place to do that. It is amazing, but if you're a person suffering that, say you're seeing things other people don't see or hearing things other people don't hear, and you are just so overwhelmed by that, you might think, wow, I can't really turn to anyone. If I tell people this,
nobody gets it.
They won't get it. Not only that, but there's so much stigma tied to it. They're going to just be critical of me, and or tell me to just snap out of it, or that I'm just whatever. They're not going to. And so for them to be able to know, do come to us, come and talk to me, tell Jensen, tell those people that are your trusted people, and let us walk that walk with you.
Yeah. I'm going to cut your lashes real quick, and then I have a question for you after that regarding this. Okay, so go ahead and just look forward for me. And then if you need a break, let me know.
Okay.
Feel okay? It's not pinching you?
No, you're doing really good.
Okay.
Better than I do when I try to curl my eyelashes.
I pride myself in knowing that I've never pinched anybody before.
You never
Hundreds. Never grabbed an eyelid. Never pulled out an eyelash.
Is this a kind of curler you love, or have you tried different ones?
I'll be honest, all eyelash curlers are kind of the same.
Oh, I heard it. Do you think everybody else did?
Yeah, get canceled. Okay. And regarding to, say somebody did have like a crippling, go ahead and look at me.
Yes.
Like a crippling mental disorder, such as like, psychosis or like schizophrenia.
Yes. And psychosis is a symptom of schizophrenia.
Okay.
But can be a symptom of many things as well. But go ahead.
How, if somebody came up to you and they're like, yo, I'm seeing things and I'm hearing things that aren't really there, how do you react to that and without judgment?
Yeah.
Because I feel like the first thing, I feel like the average person would do, I'd probably do this, I'd be like,
what? Yeah. So,
But
because
obviously you don't want to come off as you're being rude.
right, and so be curious. Tell me about, I'm really curious about what you're seeing and hearing, and I'm curious why you don't think anybody else is seeing or hearing those things. Tell me more about it. I'm really curious about it. It's not helpful to tell them they're not hearing or seeing those things. That's not so helpful. But just being curious and letting them share the experience that they're having, and then asking them how they feel about it, if they're feeling worried or if it feels scary to them, learning if they might already be receiving some supervision, medical or mental health supervision. And for the record, I really think because what's happening with mental health is taking place in the brain, which is the most complicated organ of the human body,
You're telling me.
I really do believe that mental health is a medical condition. So we separate them a lot. We talk about medical health and we talk about mental health. But mental health really is a medical condition. It's fascinating what's going on in the brain. The amygdala, that's the whole region from Inside Out, the cartoon, where we have all these strong feelings just waiting to be dispatched to respond to the different situations that we're going through. And then the hippocampus is activating memories to be like, okay, well, when this happened, when we had this feeling before, it was because this happened, and so we need to respond in this way. And we learn about what trauma has done to those connections and those decisions, and it is fascinating. So when someone is talking to us about maybe something that seems like psychosis, something where they're seeing things other people can't see or hearing things that other people can't hear, it might be something we can have an interesting conversation about. It could be that they're having a psychotic break and that they actually seem maybe a little bit dangerous to themselves at that point. And so being able to talk to them while we also are tagging in some supports would be really important too.
Okay.
And that might include calling that 988 or calling somebody else from their life that can help us with the situation, possibly even 911. But for the most part, most people that are experiencing psychosis, they're not a danger to themselves or others. It's actually something that does happen on a regular basis. And by large, by big numbers, they're much more at risk of being taken advantage of and hurt by other people than they are. Media and movies and everything really portray that in a way where we're like, oh, it's so dangerous. We're in danger. But the truth is they're actually more vulnerable and in danger than most people. However, there are situations where they could be dangerous towards themselves or others. So just being curious about it, learning about it, not telling them that they're not seeing it, but also not like necessarily helping build it into some great big thing, but just kind of like, tell me more about
Just
that.
being open-minded about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because if they are experiencing that and someone who they value in their world is willing to hold them in a safe place without judgment, talk about, like, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they can really be genuine and authentic about something they maybe have felt would really ruin their life if they shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that. I never even got in. I never even thought about the whole, like,
psychosis.
Yeah. Part of it.
Yeah.
That is wild.
It is wild because our brain is constantly trying to reconcile some of the traumatic things from our past or from chemical imbalances or diagnosable mental health conditions. Like, our brain is always working to create some kind of order, but the way it goes about doing it isn't always the most helpful, or at least acceptable by society. And so we, in our exploration and understanding of what's going on, curiosity and compassion are always going to be better options than judgment and assumptions.
Amen.
And listening non-judgmentally to anybody, we just aren't very good at that as a society.
No.
We think we are. If you ask a room full of people if they think they're good listeners, most of them will be like, yeah, I'm a good listener. But if you ask the same room of people if they feel like they have someone in their life that listens to them, nobody raises their hand. So something's off, because We all think we're such great listeners, but none of us feel like anyone's listening to us.
Yeah.
When you were younger, did you have an adult that was your safe, non-judgmental place, or did it kind of change?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah.
That's great. I had a student one time come in my office, and they said, I need to tell you something, but you're not going to like it. And I said, well, a lot of people come in here and tell me things I don't like, so
But lay it on
I'm
me.
like, go ahead. And they said, well, I need you to sit next to me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, I can sit next to you. And when I'm like, I was surprised they wanted me to sit next to them. And they said, well, I just know that when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, that even though you're going to pretend like you're not judging me, that your face is going to show me that you're judging me.
You're like, okay, just say it.
Isn't that great, though? Like, they knew that if... So sometimes we think we have to be face-to-face with people in order to be a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
But with a young person, we might be better off going for a walk with them or sitting in the car. Because
Sitting back to back.
Yeah, because we might have every intention of just being this great listener with no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as they tell us, our face might give us away. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in there.
And what they ended up telling me wasn't even that big of a deal. But they just didn't want to see my judgy face. And apparently I have one. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't think you do this.
Well, I have kind of a, you know, when you're not thinking about it, there's nicknames for the kind of face I have. But I have one of those sometimes.
Real?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I got told that yesterday.
Really?
I was like, I'm the nicest person. Just kidding. Okay, go ahead and just look down for me.
Jensen, I've never had lashes on.
You've never had lashes
Never
on?
in my
Okay,
life.
We're changing that today. You've really never?
I've really never, ever.
Not even like your wedding day or anything?
Never. No.
Really?
Really?
I'm
Not
kind of
once.
shocked.
You might be shocked, but most people in my life, nobody's probably shocked.
Never once.
Never once? No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we're changing that today.
Okay. Today, the lash is gone. What am I going to do when I'm done with these?
You just peel them off.
And they'll just come right off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My get ready routine is minutes. Yeah. Now, on my wedding day, it was minutes and minutes.
Not quite an hour. Well,
Definitely not an hour. Yeah.
guess how long my mom's is every morning.
Your mom's got a routine?
Oh, yeah.
She looks amazing every day, though.
About 3 hours.
Oh, my.
I know. I'm sorry, I just called her out right now.
Jensen's mom, that's probably where you get some of your skills. She's stunning. Yeah.
She is really pretty.
She is really pretty. Yeah. It's fun to do makeup, but it's also fun to fold laundry and stuff.
Like vacuum.
Yeah.
Dishes.
Every now and then I gotta do my job and
I find peace in doing chores.
yeah.
I really do.
Satisfying for sure.
Alright, go ahead and look down for me.
Like that.
Perfect. You hope you don't close on me.
Boy. How'd I do?
Amazing. Can you go ahead and open? Wow.
Wow.
Okay. I'm going to squeeze the lashes together. So
Wow,
I'm
I
just
can
gonna-
see the lash. I'm far enough away and I can tell that
That's
one has a
crazy,
lash on
huh?
it. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do,
I need to look.
I'm going to squeeze them, your real lashes and the fake ones together. So
Alright.
I'm going to have you just keep your head forward,
Head forward.
but look that way.
Okay, he's
Actually, other way, just kidding. Perfect. Okay, now look the other way. It's amazing. I'm so proud. Wow, you look cool with
Do
lashes,
I?
yeah.
Nice. Great. If I ever need them again, I'll let you know. Cause
Well, you can always save these when you take them off. They're
Alright.
reusable.
okay, good to know.
I'm shocked you've never worn lashes.
I've never worn lashes.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I have decent lashes,
You do,
and
you
with
have
enough
really good lashes.
mascara, I guess they just kind of. I've never been good at anything that requires, like, I've never been good at having a beautician that I go to and get my hair cut regularly, or my nails done, or, like, I have a lot of hygiene routines that I manage, but I don't really have a team of people. Because my trust issues...
Through the roof.
They are through the roof. Being in close proximity with Jensen isn't something I would want to do with very many people. Yeah.
That's valid. That is so valid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And having had this experience, anyone who gets to have their makeup done by Jensen.
There's been some where I'm like, I'm so sorry. But we all have them.
Sorry because they just didn't go well, or?
Yeah. Or I'm like, that was... I could have done way better.
You've done like tell us about the fashion shows you've done and stuff.
Oh my gosh, those are my favorite thing ever. They're so fun. They're so high energy. And, sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking because, you're working with a lot of pretty people. And there are,
Like a lot of ego?
A little bit.
Okay.
But for the most part, from my experience anyway, everybody has just genuinely been very kind and just very nice. And they're just there to have fun and do what they love. And I'm like, oh, thank God. That's why I'm here.
Right.
I'm just doing what I love, painting faces, meeting new people, making new connections. And they're really fun. Every now and then you look at that person that's a little snotty and they think they're high and mighty, and you're like, you're not. And then you think you invented unicorns, but come back to Earth. You're not Bella Hadid.
Who are your favorite, who are your people that you love to follow, or that you kind of...
Jeffree Star.
Jeffree Star.
I love Jeffree Star.
Okay.
He's so funny.
Is he dating someone new?
No.
I guess we gotta wrap this up so my battery doesn't die. Yeah.
Alright, go ahead and just look forward for me.
Yeah, if I were going to push a message out there, it would be, the message, of course, that not all wounds are visible. For us to consider our vulnerability and our willingness to trust, to find those people that we can trust and make those connections with. And then if we are feeling concerned about a friend, ourselves, or another, to tag in trusted people. We can do that anywhere from contacting people in their world, that might be supports to them, to helping them get in touch with professionals in their community, as well as calling those hotline numbers, the 988 and the 911. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Good. So lots of different ways that we can help support each other, just kind of on a spectrum of what's available to us. There are some great, people ask in our town all the time, how do I help someone get into counseling? Well, Change Point, if people are on access or insurance, we have like the Change Point mental health facility here in our community that provides counseling and different things. The governor of Arizona has a grant that will supplement any young person who needs counseling. If their insurance doesn't cover it, the governor's office has a grant that will cover insurance for any young person.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But if someone really wants to get some mental health supports and they can't make an appointment, or they're not sure they want to make an appointment with somebody local, there are some online options. And I push these out there all the time. And again, I'm not even cool like you at all. But like the BetterHelp.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot.
BetterHelp.com.
Yep.
Yeah, BetterHelp.com and Talkspace.com are two places where, I guess I'll just be quiet for a second.
Oh, you're good. You're talking.
Great places to get resources where you could get appointments and not even have to leave your house. Which is awesome.
I love that, because I think a lot of times, going out and getting ready and then walking into this office building that you've never been to before, and then you're sitting there waiting, it can be scary.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking.
Well, one of the new sponsors for I don't know if sponsor is the right word. David Archuleta, he's really promoting BetterHelp.com, as well as some other people that I hold in pretty high regard. But I've had people here locally who've gone ahead with that option and have had really good outcomes.
That's good.
And it's a good starting place, because if you're thinking, I don't really know that I just don't know what I want to do, you can start there, and then you can kind of let your experience evolve.
Yeah. 100%.
And young people who are in public schools or universities or colleges, there's always going to be some kind of behavioral health supports on campus. So look those up and find out what you have available to you as well. Like your school, I'm sure will have something along those lines. Stomach.
Have you ever worn this much makeup before?
I'm sure I haven't.
It's always fun to watch the transformation.
It's the transformation. Wow. I'm gonna have to go to Walmart or something.
Yeah, go do a photo shoot in the middle of the aisle.
Well, I was just gonna maybe get some groceries.
That works too.
Yeah, I mean, we are out of a few things. So what would you want people to know? You've been asking me a lot of what I would want people to know.
I think stop reposting all these like suicide prevention things and not doing anything about it. Do something in real life to help somebody. Like donate to a cause, talk to your friends, like genuinely ask them how they're doing rather than just being like, oh my god, I care so much, like rest in peace. Like no, go do something.
Yeah.
Go talk about it. Go talk about it with your friends. Check in on your friends. Check in on your family. Because it's not just, suicide can affect everybody. It's not just my generation or like younger kids. Like it can affect everybody and anybody.
That is the best advice. Because we're so good at reposting, and we're so good at, even when someone does die, people come out of the woodworks, and it's okay. Like everyone's allowed to have the experience that they're having. And it's important. But moving forward, if you're going to post, if you're going to repost, those are the important things to post. Anything that has the crisis lines on them, sure, get that information out there. But then back it up with some action, because trust is that integrity, it's that benevolence, it's that predictability. And so when we develop trust, we're not just reposting things. We're looking at it and we're going, I see that they're posting that, and you know what? That is someone that I can trust. That is someone I go to. But if we're seeing someone reposting things and we think, that's interesting that they're posting that, because I don't feel like they really would make any time for me. So consider how we can make the time for each other. Demonstrate that security of wanting to make time for others. Yeah, that's 100%. Great. That's really a great thing to think about.
Grinds my gears sometimes.
Yeah. And what's your advice for the 50-year-old woman? What are your tips besides what you've done? Just in general, what do you say to the aging-faced woman?
I would say treat everybody around you with kindness, because you never know what somebody's going through. And even just like being kind to people, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good as a person. Not only like are you helping the other person, but like you're also helping yourself too.
Yeah, I saw this little presentation about how they took university students and they gave them this kindness challenge, and they said for I don't remember the number of days, but for 10 days we want you to be over the top kind. We want you to give up your spot in line. We want you to open the door for people. We want you to give compliments all over the place, left and right, and just all this kindness. And they just said, just over the top, kind. And then they did these evaluations on them, academic. They did these evaluations on their satisfaction with life and their relationships. And it just soared. Like, they scored better on their academic tests. They did better, reported feeling better in their relationships. But they did it in, like, these cycles. Because then they did, like, the same amount of days of being easily annoyed. Like, allow yourself to just be worked up by every little thing. And annoyed with driving, and annoyed with every little thing. And then they made those same assessments, and everybody's scores went down.
Really?
And then they asked him to just be neutral. They were like, okay, now spend the next 10 days or however many just being your neutral self. And their test scores actually went down too. And so it was just this study on how valuable kindness is. Yeah. And that even if we're faking it, because they were being told to do it, it might not have been their genuine default. But even if it wasn't their genuine default, even faking it to begin with, they would report that it started to feel more and more genuine. Wow, Jensen.
Okay, I'm going to spray you one last time.
Okay.
You get fanned one last time. Okay, ready?
Do you think you're going to get into the hair side of things?
Oh, absolutely not. I can't stand hair. I'm so bad. I'm so bad at it.
I don't know if you noticed, but I did use a little brown powder to color in my gray spots for you. I did, yeah. Because it's time for a little bit of time to dye the roots, but I have a nice little powder I can put on there. It's like that, yeah. But it is just, it's pretty much that. Yeah, we figure things out, Jensen.
Got a few tricks up the
We
sleeve.
have a few tricks. I might not have ever worn eyelashes, but I got a few tricks.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready to see like up close and
I
personal?
am. I'm ready.
Okay. Here, I'll bring you a mirror.
Okay, you bring me a mirror, and then I'm gonna go give a look-see up at my Facebook Live.
Okay, it's full of glam, so just be ready.
So, like, am I even gonna know who I am?
Probably not.
You have to keep in mind if you put it too close, I won't see it because my eyes. It's gonna have to be getting a mirror clean right now.
Can't have no spots on it.
Well, Jensen, I love the relationship we've had since you were in junior high, and I love that all through high school you've come and sat by us and chatted with us.
Always.
And I can't wait for you to do more of the same. Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's full of glam.
You guys all look so good. That is glam. Those lashes are something.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, I'm coming in for the close-up. This is yours running too?
Yeah.
Okay. Jensen's counter. Wow, the lighting over here is really good. My little light stopped, but nice. Well, we did it. Come in for our goodbyes. Jensen already is and will continue to find his fame. And he's always remembered the little people.
Yes. Never forget where you came from.
Never forget where you came from. Appreciate you, and we'll have to chat again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This is so much fun.
It's so important, and anyone who follows Jensen, anyone who's going to be able to watch any of these little things we're putting together, do what we're saying as far as getting the message out there. Share those hotlines, 988 for the crisis lifeline, 911 if you're worried about medical or overdose. You can use these numbers if you are in a crisis yourself, and you can use these numbers if you're supporting someone who is having a crisis and you're not sure what to do. We've gone over a lot of different steps we can take to try to support them on the front side, but if we're in a crisis, then make sure we're calling these numbers and getting that extra support. It's important. And as much as we, all have had experiences with people we've lost to suicide, to overdose, and in other ways. Let's be kind and compassionate with ourselves and our efforts. And as we move forward, we know what we know, and we do the best with what we know. And we're going to have our rough moments too, but we just keep on trying. The grant that I'm working with is the Not All Wounds Are Visible. And it will be doing more, visits about that stuff. If you're someone who knows me and you'd like to talk about mental health, you don't even have to do my makeup.
That was just a bonus.
That was a bonus. We can just have a chat sometime. Reach out to me and we can maybe put something together and you can help support this great cause. All right, I'm signing out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jensen.
You're so welcome. Guys, you heard all that? Yeah? Okay, cool. Love that. Well, thank you
Jensen
guys.
School Counselor. Coolest kid ever.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Go follow Miss Becky Montoya.
Yes.
Becky Montoya right now.
Yes,
She's
it is.
married.
I got married.
Anyway.
Without eyelashes, I got married.
That's crazy.
I know. What in the world?
It hurts my heart a little bit. I'm not kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, bye guys. Thank you.